Hi, everyone. I just wanted to read a poem and talk a little bit about something I've been thinking about in regards to poetry and writing in general. Um, and at this point in our kind of craft history, a lot of the leading advice tends towards the notion that clarity, brevity, and let's just say not breaking the spell or the illusion of a piece is paramount. And while I agree to some extent with those ideas, I also wanted to propose some contrary ideas or the idea of a counter poetics in a way. And this isn't a manifesto or anything like that. It's not even really advice. It's just a thought or a process that I've been trying to follow in my own work, which is not to say anyone else has to do it, but just that I find it interesting. And that is this: is that there is the idea of clarity, the idea of rendering an image very quickly, and having it put the reader under kind of this sort of spell, sort of like a movie does when we suspend our disbelief and we follow a plot that may or may not make sense, but we buy into it because our consciousness is kind of in track along with the movie. And I feel like a lot of times our poems are doing that, and that's great, and it's awesome. We've gotten really good at it, and I know some fabulous poets that are doing that. But I've been thinking about how poetry specifically relates to other types of disciplines. For instance, in painting, um, we don't have a notion in painting that clarity is everything. In fact, oftentimes it's what we leave out of a poem or a painting, I should say, that makes us think about other things like what is obscured or what is difficult to see, what forces us to make an active choice in our awareness of what's going on in a painting. And I think we can do that in a poem too. And what I'm suggesting is this: is that we have a common phrase in the craft where we say, "This takes me out of the poem," or "This makes me think," and sometimes I wonder about that. Sometimes I wonder why that's bad. I don't necessarily think it's bad per se, although I'm certainly not saying we should write in a purposefully muddy way unless it's intended as an effect. Um, So what I was thinking about is this: is the balance between the clarity of a work and what we choose to make opaque or obfuscate, or I've been thinking a lot in terms of this opacity, this the sense that it might be difficult to see something that's there, or that we can only determine through inference. And I think that's an interesting idea. So I'm going to continue to play with that and continue to talk with it and develop that idea. And I'm certainly not insisting that it's my own work. It's just what I'm pursuing. And there's a lot of great people that came before me that have pursued it to a much greater degree. Anyways, I'd love to read this poem. It kind of exhibits that. And I think the photograph that I chose to pair with this poem is kind of working in the same levels as what my poems have been doing, and that is there's multiple levels of sight. There's multiple levels of what this image is telling us. There's multiple levels of um, first the gloss image, and then the reflections from that image, and sometimes even the contrary images that that displays. Then there's what we know to be behind it, which is the object itself, in the composite things, the amalgamation of things that generate that object. And what I'm suggesting here, maybe in this poem a bit, is the incorporation of things, the inclusiveness of being. And I'm trying to reflect that in the poetry. I don't know if it's successful. Again, it's not a manifesto. It's a thing I'm chasing, and it's elusive. So I've talked about 5 minutes now. So why don't do a poem? Okay, I'll shut up now. Here's the poem. Looking into the Gemini space capsule, who will you find to love you? The shortest way to travel between two distances is to find your singularity. I have the gift of going nowhere fast. If each of us is nested inside the other, if we are the womb of root and branch and safety glass, altimeter, artificial horizon, attitude indicator, if we are zero altitude, zero airspeed ejection seats, what courage it takes to stay shot into space or left behind here on the ground. What love to learn to disarm these frontal lobes so that when the enemy erodes, we find ourselves lost as sons and daughters. Pull the coiled black and yellow D-ring to escape the cabin fire. Pull down the mask at last, mother, father, oxygen hose trailing life into the vacuum of hospital beds as the explosive bolts let loose, jettison us into some new free space. We learn to hug ourselves. We learn to hug each other, nested in our branches, our roots, womb of all one being. Well, there it is, for better or for worse. More ideas and poems later. Thank you so much for watching and the encouragement, and I hope maybe this helps in some small way. All right, take care. Be well.